right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Philip Bransford, and I use he, him, his pronouns. And I am the Communications Officer with the Washington County Administrative Office. And I am so pleased to be with all of you tonight. The purpose of our meeting, as you can see on the slide, hopefully on our screen here, on our Zoom screen, is to engage in some dialogue here, to interact with our Board of County Commissioners among elected officials representing all corners of our community on the topic of the county's American Rescue Plan framework. So we are so pleased to have such distinguished fellow electeds. I'm not an elected, but you all are, and we are pleased to have you here. This is not a secret meeting. It's been duly noticed by the county. The public is welcome to observe, but this is a dedicated time here for our elected community to engage here, like I mentioned, with our Board of County Commissioners. So that is the purpose that we are pursuing with the next hour and a half. We know that you have a choice for what you want to do on a Friday night. So we appreciate that you have chosen to spend it on such an important topic for our community. The pandemic has affected every corner of our community. So working together is of critical importance. You can see the agenda here on this slide. Hopefully you can. We are in our welcome housekeeping mode right now. And then we are going to hear from a key staff person I'll introduce in a moment, just to walk through briefly our county board adopted framework for the American Rescue Plan. But the bulk of the time is really meant to have that Q&A with our Board of County Commissioners. And what we'll do there is we'll ask you to keep your camera off until that question segment is upon us. And then we will look for you to raise your hand, and we have some staff here to help us out to identify you, so that we get you all queued up to engage with our board. We're going to try to keep to about two minutes per question, but we know that you have a lot to say, and you are important, and so we'll I'll do my best to keep us to that. We have such a long time here allotted, a good amount of time, so I'm not anticipating we're going to need to worry about that. We'll have plenty of time to interact. And I'll go over some of these guidelines later on when we get closer to the Q&A. But for now, I'm extremely thankful for all of you being here. I will next ask our board members if they would please just provide us some a word or two just to welcome your colleagues here from across the county about this topic. I know Commissioner Fye, I believe, is going to join us a little bit later, but if we can advance the slide here, what I'd like to do is just go, like we typically do, go down the list here by number and give Chair Harrington the last word. So that means, if I'm not mistaken, if we could start with Commissioner Therese, if I'm not mistaken about Commissioner Fye not being on the queue in the meeting just yet. Commissioner Therese, would you like to start us off with a word or two, just welcoming your colleagues?
Certainly, Philip. Thank you very much. And welcome to everybody that's here. I think it's really important that all of us are talking about these dollars together and what it means to our communities and how we support our communities. But I'm really glad that we're in this Zoom room together. I've got on my other computer, I've got the Red Sox game up, so I'll be able to provide updates if there are several people I think that might be interested in that. And also, I noticed that Mayor Truax is wearing his Trailblazers shirt, so I appreciate that as well. Thank you all for being here. This is an important topic, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Pam. I'm just happy that Mayor Truax isn't wearing his Husky shirt, because that would be a little bit more than I could handle. But he's a big fan of Seahawks as well. So this here is not about Mayor Truax, of course. But yes, thank you for all being here on a Friday night. The Chair Harrington and I sit in on an ARPA meeting earlier today, and the question was posed: if we fast forward to December 2024 and looking back, are we going to, I guess, be happy, be reflective of how we've handled this amount of money over these few years, and how have we addressed the community needs? And so I think that's a really good perspective for tonight, that we need to be visionary in our conversation, and certainly addressing the most critical needs that we have available for this money to address over the next few years. And so that would be the challenge that I give to everybody that's on this call today, that let's be visionary, and let's make sure that we use this money to absolutely the best purpose. So thanks again for being here tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. And I think I saw Commissioner Rogers was there.
You did.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Philip. I too would echo the same sentiments. Nice to see everyone here tonight. A lot of names of old friends. If this was 30 years ago, I would say these weren't the cool kids. Friday night, and we're on a meeting. My goodness gracious. But here we are, the elected officials doing the public business on a Friday night, and I think that's important work to do. So thank you for being here, and we're, at least I think all of us are more than happy to listen to what everyone collective wisdom on this topic is.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. And I believe Commissioner Fye did join us a moment ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Philip, hi, I'm here.
Go right ahead. We're just giving a couple words of welcome.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Nafisa Fye, Commissioner for District 1. Great to see you all. I know you can't see me. I have my camera off. I unfortunately have a prior commitment that couldn't be moved. So I will try to be at two places in one, but shortly I'm going to have to log on and catch up at the conversation online later on. It's so exciting, and I wish you a great conversation on this topic, and I think that there are a lot of great minds here, and look forward to what comes out of this discussion. And have a great evening, and I agree with Commissioner Rogers. Friday night is the cool kids here.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Chair Harrington, would you like to round us off here so we can get on with our evening?
Yes, thank you, Philip. And thank you, everyone, for joining us, from state reps, staff member, from our great Congresswoman Bonamici, city mayors, city councilors. Thank you. I really appreciate your joining us this evening. We all serve our shared community, and each of us brings a different perspective, but also different contacts from within our community and what we're hearing from different community members. So we're pleased to have time with you tonight to discuss how we are moving forward in investing the first set of dollars available through the American Rescue Plan Act. And we look forward to hearing any comments you might have that we should start thinking about now before we work on the next set of funding. So thanks again for this Friday night, and onward we go to the material.
Thank you, Chair. And let's do that. I would love to have Dorian Russell join us here. She's our Senior Program Administrator and the lead staff person in the County Administrative Office. We can move one slide forward. coordinating our use of American Rescue Plan funds. Dorian, would you please take it away?
Absolutely. Can we advance the slide, please? Thanks so much. As Philip mentioned, my name is Dorian Russell. I coordinate the county's strategy surrounding American Rescue Plan Act funding. And I'm so excited to be joining you here today as we think about some of our shared values and shared vision for serving our community. I'm going to be presenting on what the Board of County Commissioners has approved for our Tranche 1, or our first portion of funding. And I'm really excited to hear some of the thoughts that you bring to the board surrounding how we move into pandemic recovery. So first, to get started, could you advance the slide, please, Jack? As an elected official, you're probably already pretty well versed on ARPA, but I did want to provide a brief recap. So the American Rescue Plan Act was passed by the US Congress in March, sending pandemic relief funding to households, to businesses, to education, local government, and more. As you probably know, this included relief for individuals and families through things like stimulus checks and the child tax credit. It supported businesses through paid leave credits, shuttered venue support. It also supported education systems. So emergency funding went to schools to address learning loss, internet access, and homeless youth programs. But really what we're talking about here tonight is the local government piece. So the state and local fiscal recovery funds piece that governments, including cities, the county, the state, and tribal governments have been given to use with great flexibility so that we can continue our services and also support local recovery. So today's conversation, while the suite of ARPA legislation was incredibly vast, our conversation today is specifically about those state and local fiscal recovery funds. Next slide, please. So this year, before the Board of County Commissioners decided to spend any ARPA funding at all, they really sat down and thought deeply about what our core values are and how our core values are going to guide us to make the best investments that we can for supporting long-term recovery in our communities. And when we say values, what we really mean is what we stand for when we're doing this work. And so the core values that are guiding us in ARPA-related work include equity. By leading with racial equity, we can mitigate historical impacts, change persistent systemic issues, and work to achieve a more inclusive future. Importantly, a value is resilience. We're looking to foster strong organizations, strong individuals, and strong systems in focusing on the long term. Collaboration. Why we're here today, we know that we achieve better outcomes when we work together, and today is just one example of that. And finally, good governance. We aim to be responsible stewards of the public trust and these ARPA-related resources. Next slide, please. So for our principles, in addition to identifying the values that we stand for, we also thoughtfully considered what our core principles are. And in this framework, we can think of our principles as the rules that we follow in this work to get to a full recovery. So the rules guiding our work include centering racial equity, investing in public health first, leveraging multiple resources, being innovative, proactive, and strategic, seeking collaborative solutions, and working with transparency. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of what our tentative ARPA schedule is. Tentative because we know the pandemic has shifted and things can have some uncertainty. But as a public health agency, we're continuing to carefully balance that continued response piece in responding to the pandemic while also balancing our pandemic recovery efforts. And so right now, Washington County is diligently working to respond to the pandemic and continue to save lives. But looking ahead, we have until the end of 2024 to decide what we're spending ARPA funding on. So you can see in this timeline, we're still managing that continued response, that blue line at the top. and also planning to very thoughtfully address recovery over time in that longer brown line. That gets to Commissioner Willie's point earlier about when we get to the end of 2024 and look back, what will we hope that we have accomplished? And this continues to be a balance of really thoughtfully thinking about recovery while also saving lives in the pandemic. Next slide, please. So Washington County, like other state and fiscal local recovery fund recipients, we received the first half of our funding this year from the federal government, and we'll receive the second half of our funding next year in 2022. So throughout this year and throughout next year, we plan to look to community, and most particularly marginalized communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, to develop priority investment areas for recovery. And so thus far, the Board of County Commissioners has intentionally developed an investment framework just for that first allocation. We're really seeing this as an opportunity to take a deep breath and breathe and collaborate with community and take a more long-form, strategic and evidence-informed approach with ARPA. This ARPA timeline is in direct contrast, as you probably have experienced as well, with what folks experienced in the CARES Act period, where we had to get funding out the door with really great urgency. And so in contrast with ARPA, we really have the ability to thoughtfully plan how to build resilient systems with a focus on the long term. Next slide, please. Great. And so within the context of just that first allocation of funding, the Board of County Commissioners developed the following ARPA investment areas. These include protecting public health, community stabilization and wellness, stabilizing and supporting the local economy, community engagement, continued operations, and a contingency fund. Next slide, please. For those investments that fall underneath protecting public health, over $31.5 million of that first tranche of ARPA funds are going to helping our communities survive COVID-19. This includes isolation and quarantine support, vaccination, testing, and community education that's critical to helping people survive. In addition, we're spending over $3.5 million in meeting basic needs, so basic supplies and wraparound services for households that are in quarantine, including culturally specific support. Next slide, please. I want to pause here and really underscore the board's leadership in deciding to protect public health first. In doing this, Washington County is saving lives. The county sees its role in protecting public health first and using ARPA dollars to invest in people. So we're still learning how to live amid COVID-19, and Washington County is carefully balancing that continued response to the pandemic and pandemic recovery efforts. And with the proliferation of the Delta variant of the coronavirus over the last several months, this really further underscored the board's approach in protecting public health. And we know that in order to have a full holistic recovery, including an economic recovery, that we have to prevent COVID-19 from spreading. Next slide, please. Continuing with the investments in community stabilization and wellness, we're investing $2.8 million into childcare efforts, including an assessment of childcare provider capacity across the county, having a provider grant program, and also developing focused childcare networks that span 10 or more languages. We're also investing over $1 million in family health, specifically infant, child, and family support with a focus on BIPOC families. $1.8 million in behavioral health for things like suicide prevention and behavioral health staffing. Almost $2 million for shelter and safety, which includes our services at encampments, as well as $2 million to help households that are behind on their utility bills. Next slide, please. Stabilizing and supporting the local economy. We're spending $2.5 million in small business recovery through our business recovery centers, as well as small business support, including technical assistance and access to funding. We're also spending over $2.8 million in workforce development, which will include job training programs, reskilling programs, and wraparound services for low-income workers. And finally, the pandemic really underscored the importance of internet access And so the county is supporting a broadband investment strategy to better understand internet access and affordability across the county. Next slide, please. For community engagement, we're working to better diversify our communications and improving county social media. We're building community capacity in our collaborations by building community partner capacity, leading community engagement strategies, and providing related support. We're also really taking an approach to look at our data systems and lead with equity. So we're taking a look at the tools and the strategies that we use in order to make sure that our programs are making a difference and resulting in the outcomes that community wants to see. Next slide, please. Continued operations. As all of your jurisdictions also know, having resilient and flexible operations allows us all to continue providing essential services. So this area is our facilities, technology, and communications needs surrounding responding to and recovering from the pandemic. Next slide, please. Finally, contingency. Each month of the pandemic has progressed in new and sometimes surprising ways, and this allows us to be adaptable. Next slide, please. Finally, I want to take a moment and underscore Washington County's role as a convener and a collaborator in this work, and in this work with you. As a county, we have a unique role in serving as a convener and a collaborator for all within our geography. And within the context of ARPA, we're striving to work hand in hand with your jurisdiction toward a holistic pandemic recovery. And we know that building more resilient communities, this is going to require stepping away from the way we've always done things. And so we're trying to create space as a convener and a collaborator to really co-create that vision of pandemic recovery with you. And we've been doing this in a variety of ways. First, the board is striving to share insights and maintain open lines of communications with you. Today's meeting is just one example of that. Second, for convening city leaders to develop shared models, Washington County ARPA staff are working with other jurisdictions who also received ARPA funds to identify ways that we can use our dollars more efficiently and not duplicate efforts. We're working together to identify thematic areas where the county and cities have shared values. For example, perhaps this is in economic recovery and community engagement. And we're looking for ways to align our approaches, prevent those duplicated efforts, and also prevent overburdening of some of our shared community partners. Third, we're collaborating with CBOs on pandemic recovery priorities. Washington County interacts with over 500 community-based organization contacts throughout the county. And our public health team has developed a COVID-19 racial equity work group that has provided tremendous strategy and insight for Washington County's efforts in equitable vaccine access. This group of culturally specific community-based organizations is now serving the county by expanding its scope and diving into other pandemic recovery priority topics, and also helping to co-lead our engagement approach. And finally, on communicating effectively on public health, throughout the pandemic, Washington County has served as your local public health agency and partner in keeping our communities safe. We continue to spend our ARPA dollars on saving lives throughout our jurisdictions, and we know we're more effective in partnership with you and in our shared communication efforts. So thank you. Next slide, please. And at this point, I'd love to turn it back to the Board of County Commissioners to answer your questions and hear your thoughts on our ARPA framework thus far and your ideas moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorian. That's very informative. And I know that you've provided this overview through our publicly accessible town halls and with our board meetings. So we are doing what we can to get the word out. And that's very much appreciated. This time we are focusing on our elected community here in Washington County. If we can move one slide forward, we would like you now to engage with our board. And we have this slide for lots of different meetings, just to highlight the importance of speaking with intention and appreciating diversity. You can read these principles on your own. I think that we have highly renowned body of governing boards and councils throughout our county, so I'm not going to dwell on this, but I will repeat some of the ground rules or the mechanics anyway, that maybe if you didn't hear earlier about how we're going to proceed. We'd love for you to get recognized, first of all, by raising your hand, and we will track who's got their hand raised, and I have some helpers here who are going to pipe up in a second and let me know who's first. It would be lovely if you could identify the commissioner that you would like to direct your question to, and if it's a general comment, I might or a question, I might intervene a little bit to prompt one of our board members who need no prompting, as I'm sure you'll agree, but nonetheless to try to direct and make equal opportunity for all 5 of them. Let's see, if you would leave your camera off, and we'll indicate that, you know, with your hand raised, that it's your turn to take the floor. We will manage that portion, and we're talking about roughly 2 minutes, but we have about an hour, so I'm hoping with all of you that we can have plenty of 2-minute segments all the way through. Go ahead, Chair.
Could we please advance Representative Maxine Dexter from attendees, please? You already caught Rep. Noble, so it's great. It's just nice to have multiple state legislators with us tonight. Thank you.
It is, certainly. So let's see. Why don't we go to the full screen view then, so we can see one another. And let's ask my esteemed colleagues off camera here whom we should go to first.
Looks like Mayor Truax put his hand up first.
Excellent. Mayor, would you please ask your question?
First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for the invitation. Ms. Russell did an outstanding job. My comment, I have a comment and then a question. The comment is, thank you very much for the $2.8 million dealing with childcare. Childcare is now an infrastructure issue as far as I'm concerned, and we need to treat it as such. And I would hope that that figure would be at least the same, if not greater, with the second tranche. Broadband, I'm a little bit concerned about. Could you, anybody on the commission, $200,000 doesn't sound like it's going to go very far as far as trying to
study. Yeah.
As far as trying to get across the broad reaches of Washington County. Certain parts of our city are still broadband deserts. So I would appreciate that discussion. With all due respect, I think we've had a boatload of studies on broadband, and maybe we can turn the 200 grand towards something else, towards more activation of that. But thank you again for doing this. I'll shut up.
Thank you, Mayor. I heard childcare, I heard broadband. Chair, I know you want to comment on that. Chair, if I can ask maybe Commissioner Willie to start us off with the broadband piece, just because I know that it's a topic of interest to him.
He's doing rural broadband. I'm the one that championed this urban study,
I stand corrected.
Study.
I stand corrected, Chair. Go right ahead.
So Mayor Truax is right. We do know about broadband capabilities in different parts of our county, but he's right. There are gaps in different places. What we need, and what our state legislators are asking us is, can you please make sure that you have a comprehensive study of what broadband availability is across the county and where you have needs, so that as there are additional funding programs, you'll be poised and at the ready. So Commissioner Willie, with his colleagues in Colpack, out in the rural western areas, has a study underway to better inform that needs. but we have different parts of our county that have varying levels of information. So this project is already underway. Our staff already communicating about what we know, where we know it, and where we have additional information needs, so that we will be best prepared to pursue those additional funding opportunities. So that's just the high level at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. And I wonder if Commissioner Therese, you wanted to touch on childcare?
Well, certainly. Thank you, Philip. I don't know if Commissioner Willie had anything more that he wanted to add to the broadband. So he's nodding his head, and then I'll talk about childcare.
Thank you, Pam. Yeah, just to follow up, Mayor, you know that Colpac, we have hired a consulting agency to study basically a 3-county rural broadband. Tillamook County is way ahead of us in that. They've already commissioned another study on their needs for rural broadband. So Columbia County and us and Clatsop County are certainly looking at, that's the Colpac thing. And that's going to cost us about $125,000 to do that. We're also talking to the city of Hillsborough because they have created and implemented their own broadband service for their citizens. And then as you may not know, is that in 2017, and I think it was delivered to the county commission in January of 2018, was an unincorporated last mile study. And so we've got a lot of information that's available. And I think our focus is corporately, both on unincorporated, certainly inside of Washington County and our rural Washington County. Our focus is we're going to get this project shovel ready, because when and if our federal government gets the infrastructure package passed, that we're going to be able to step up and say, we're ready. So all we need is funding. So I think that's our focus. That's why you see some money allocated of the ARPA money to make sure that we are comprehensive in our needs, not just the rural, but certainly in our unincorporated and inside of Washington County, which obviously would include cities of Forest Grove and Cornelius and the cities that are in District 4. So thanks for the question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Did you have another comment there, Commissioner Therese?
Yes, please. One other piece I would just like to add is that a little definition that Colpac is the economic development district. So I just want to clarify what that is if you weren't aware. So just a piece of information. When it comes to childcare, I think if we've learned anything through this pandemic, we've learned so many different things, but one thing that's near and dear to my heart is the impact that the pandemic has had on our families from the perspective of working mothers. We've seen a great exodus from the workplace for women. They have been called back to the home, so to speak, to provide childcare, to provide educational support. We all are aware of this. We've seen it. And even before we entered into the pandemic, we were a childcare desert. The magnifying glass is great on this issue now. So it is incumbent upon us to look forward and make sure that we're addressing, or at least starting to address, the daycare issues that are in front of us. So thank you, Philip.
Absolutely, thank you. And unless there are other board members that wanted to chime in, I think we can go to another question. I was looking at the queue here. It looks like Representative Scouten is next, and then Representative Weber after that.
Well, hi, everybody. It's nice to join you all. since you're talking about childcare, I came to the meeting because I wanted just to share what the ARPA investments that, was from my, a little neck of the woods. And mine was, well, there was two. One was 800,000 for the YMCA Childcare Center. It was one that originally we had funded with lottery bonds, but when the pandemic hit, they were not available. There was some money that was restored, but not the full amount. So I put the money back, and we've now had our ribbon cutting and opening and all that stuff with the Child Care Center. So what's really nice about this Child Care Center is could be for anyone. And why that is so is because it's on a sliding fee schedule. So whether you make a low wage or a high wage, you can apply. So I wanted to share that part. And the second part, which a lot of you probably we all know about the Patricia Reeser Center for Performing Arts. And I was very pleased to be able to tour that yesterday. And with my husband, Dick, you all know, and we were able to see all the progress that's being made. The upcoming opening will be March 1st, but because of the pandemic, they lost some of their funding. And so I put in the other part of my 2 million, which was 1.2 million, went to the Patricia Research Center. So and everybody in, the region can benefit by that. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Representative. I wonder if there's any comment coming back from any of our board members about what Representative Scouten has contributed here.
I'd like to say thank you. And, that's a good example of we're all in this together, whether all of us as elected officials, and we're all trying to meet the needs of our constituents. And what I'm really grateful for is the fact that we're communicating together about what these directions are and the needs that we see in front of us. So thank you, Representative Scouten. Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, it was a great project to work with, and it covers really a very broad area because it may be that the center might be close to where somebody works, it might be where they live, it might be on the route, so it covers a wide area.
Thank you very much.
If I could join in on that, yeah, thank you. And if I could be so casual as to say thank you, Sherry, rather than Representative, but and please give Dick hi, thank you for that, because I'd love to have coffee with him whenever he's available. He's a busy retired guy, I'm sure. Huh?
That's your message.
So anyway, but no, we significantly appreciate certainly your involvement and your investment in the Pat Research Center, and what a great addition that's going to be. And
it's really cool, you guys. I can't wait till everybody gets to see it. It's so nice inside. I was blown away.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. And then, following up with Commissioner Therese on daycare, what we have absolutely discovered is that we try and address barriers to re-entry into employment, and that is certainly a significant one. So thank you for your commitment to that as well. And so we're going to be very focused to that.
Great.
Excellent.
Glad to help.
Thank you very much. And I want to give the floor to your colleague, Representative Weber, who is
Philip, you're not going to let me make a comment?
Oh, of course I will.
I waved at you, but I guess my hand isn't large enough.
My apologies.
Sherry, say hello to Dick. I've known both of you a long, long time. And so I had no formalities either side, but I do appreciate your continued effort. And Dick was a champion the entire time that he was on the board. I want to put a little idea in your mind, which I did to Ron Wyden as well. Childcare, as we know it, is something that is being funded through federal funds. But I said that's only a Band-Aid. I think, and this is why I'm bringing the point up to you as a state legislator. Why don't we look at a tax credit for employers? Employers are happy to provide benefits if they think they can afford them. So instead of just doing something that might make us whole for a short period of time, why not look at some kind of expanded tax credit? If the employer pays the health, or not the health, but the child care, they can get a credit on their return. We'll get people back to work. We don't get people back to work by simply paying child care. We get them back by them going to work. So get them back in those seats. Let's give them, the employer, a credit if they pay it. And it's a win-win for everything. I know that Ron was taking notes. I don't know if we'll ever see it, but he said an interesting idea. So think about that in your next session.
Well, I will. I'm on the early childhood committee in the House. They don't have one in the Senate like that, but we do in the House. And that's one idea that we're definitely will be kicking around.
Great, thank you.
One last thing about childcare is that we need to be thinking of childcare in non-traditional families as well as traditional families. We see this across our society, and it's really important that we address that as well. So, and I know that that's also on your radar, but I think it's important to mention, and I did get a little nudge on that, but I do believe strongly that we need to consider that.
Yeah.
Speaking of nudges, Representative Weber is nudging me here virtually. No, I'm just kidding. But I am serious that you've been waiting a long time, Representative. Would you like to take the floor?
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here this evening. Friday is kind of a hard time, but I appreciate seeing all of the people that have decided to give up their time to be able to participate in this. And I want to thank Mayor Truax for bringing forward the broadband issue. And I also want to remind people that the governor was very passionate about making sure that there was going to be funds for broadband in the budget this biennium. And I believe that she has committed $100 million to that. And I think that we should be looking for projects and uses for that amount of money also, in addition to the ARPA funds that we're talking about right here. And the second thing I want to address is, of course, childcare. And I think that something that needs to happen is that we have to provide security for the people who are providing the childcare. You know, we have, I have noticed in some of the childcare facilities that I have visited that they have a rapid change of employment. And, you know, people are in and then they're out because they can get a better job working at McDonald's or something. And you know, our children are our most important resource, and we have got to be able to provide for them the best we can because they're our future. And so I think it's very important that when we're looking at childcare, that we are also looking at the care of the people who are providing the care.
Excellent point. Any board member would like to address that?
Suzanne, Representative Weber, you're absolutely right. And as we look at these programs moving forward, we have to look at base compensation for those that are providing the care. No matter if it's daycare, childcare, universal pre-K, whatever it might be, that's such an important consideration in this picture, because you're absolutely right. The turnover in this and the trend toward low-paying opportunities has to stop. So thank you very much for that comment.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'm going to turn, unless there's someone else, I'm going to turn to Councilor Sansusi next. Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you. Greetings, everybody from the city of Beaverton. I have just a couple quick comments and then one question for y'all. The comment is that we had a fairly in-depth and substantial discussion ourselves about how to allocate those portions of our ARPA funding that have not yet been allocated in the city of Beaverton, where our grand total is $16.5 million over 2 years. So we're looking at about $8+ million per year. We took $3 million off the top right at the beginning in order to fill some holes in our budget for the fiscal year 21-22 budget. But that left about $5.5 million of the first tranche of funds, and then we had the second tranche. In the October 12th City of Beaverton agenda, there is an agenda bill, we call it. It's a PDF file that includes a couple of pages that describe how our staff are currently thinking and recommending to the council that those monies be allocated. And probably to nobody's great surprise, our staff have been working closely with the county staff, and the organization of the investment goal categories in our document looks an awful lot like the slide that we saw earlier on that Dorian Russell put up in terms of facilitating community wellness, stabilizing the local economy, community engagement, ensuring continuation of operation. But the other thing that's in there is the allocations that we have received from the state, such as Representative Scouten mentioned, and also the allocations that we hope to receive courtesy of federal earmarks through Congresswoman Bonamici's office and the senators. So we're looking at those all together in context so that we don't spend money of ARPA money on programs that are being funded by state allocations of money. And we are trying to make sure that we don't overlap too much with the county as well, so that we're not spending money on something that the county is heavily investing in. So not surprisingly, there's nothing in our budget for public health, because that is a significant county investment. So if anybody from any of the other cities or from the county is interested, that's out there on the October 12th City Council agenda. So the question that I have is that as you folks have done as well, we left some unallocated from the second tranche of monies, even in this provisional allocation. We haven't made any final decisions yet. What is the process and the general strategy that you anticipate the county using to decide how to spend that next tranche of money? Because I think the way that you're thinking about it may help us identify how to prioritize our decisions about the second part of the investment.
That's an excellent question. I wonder if Chair Harrington would like to start that one off.
Well, as Commissioner Willie mentioned a little earlier, he and I are the board liaisons working on an internal steering committee, which frames up options and recommendations for the board to consider. We're very much at the very first stages. So just today, Dorian had the steering committee members think about the question that Commissioner Willie shared with us earlier. You know, imagine yourselves sitting in your chair in December of 2025. We have to spend all this money by the end of 2024. So, you know, feels like a long time out, but what are some of the things you would have hoped to address or accomplish, and to really free our minds from the issues that we've been grappling with so intensely over these last 18 months, and then going from there. Still at the early stages, which is one reason why we wanted to offer elected officials the opportunity to hear about our first tranche framework and share comments as well as questions. This is not the end of our process in engaging with you. It is truly the beginning. You know, we did a lot of work in very short order back in 2020 to put the CARES Act $104 million into action in the community before the end of the year of 2020, when we were expected to spend it. So we're trying to make sure that we're getting dollars out swiftly to really address the needs of our community. So we don't have any early ideas for the frame up yet. We're just starting it. The board hasn't yet had the conversation yet, But rest assured that between now and next summer, when those dollars arrive, that you can count on there being more conversations between now and then. Absolutely. Commissioner Willie may have more to add as well.
Yeah, I think my comment today was the only thing that we don't know is we don't know what to expect next. And if there's one thing that this pandemic has done is continued to throw us curveballs. Okay, using the baseball, Red Sox, what's a scoop there? Anyway, we don't know what we don't know. And I think that's kind of, we go into this saying we're going to deal with the things and the issues that are immediately in front of us, but anticipating that there's going to be more and different as that we go down through the pike. And I think that the chair pointed this out earlier today, was that we need to make sure that we stretch through 2023. And although we may think, gosh, we're in 2021 right now, we're going to be there really quickly, and still dealing with some of the ramifications that has been put on us over the last 18 months. So we have this opportunity, and I think that's going to be our focus. Is we're going to make sure we are diligent, we are trying to be visionary, and certainly thoughtful about how we can best help everyone that's been impacted by this. So yeah, and we're going to need everyone that's on this Zoom call to weigh in and help us make sure that we touch all those bases. Commissioner Therese.
Bottom of the fifth, Red Sox 0, Astros 1. Just reporting.
Thank you. Let me ask Commissioner Rogers and Commissioner Therese, you may have some thoughts too on this. Councilor Sansucci's question, just the idea of collaboration. It's at the core of what Washington County has been all about for a long time, and that's what I heard in the councilor's question. Commissioner Therese, did you have further thoughts on that? And I would like to ask Commissioner Rogers the same question.
Thank you, Philip. All sports pieces aside, I think that the importance of collaboration is it's right up at the top. But what I hold near and dear is the fact that I know our staffs are talking together, and I know that our staffs are working. And I believe Councilor Sansucci pointed that out, and that's important. But we need to continue to have these types of interactions that frankly, that make all of us feel more comfortable that we're on the same page. And that's, to me, that's really, really critical. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Rogers.
Well, thank you. I can go back a lot of years on this board, and we've always worked very closely with the cities and others, and that's been the hallmark. Mark, if I had my scepter and could have any wish, I probably would ask that maybe the county bring some of the cities into the formation of the policy. We basically form up what we think is the best way of spending this money, and then we have meetings like this and take input. But that's a little late. I greatly respect that maybe if we added a few folks to the initial framing of how we're going to put the buckets, as I call them, of money together, that would help in collaboration, because I know you all have good ideas as well. So that would be my thought at the beginning, more than at the end of here's how you're reacting. Beyond that, Beaverton, I know, has had a very robust, from what I understand, that process of analyzing this, and I think that's good. Yeah, you shouldn't have to replicate exactly what we do, and we shouldn't have to replicate what you do, but we should somehow move forward together, not as these orbits that are going on separate. So I certainly respect your question. It's a very thoughtful one.
Thank you. And I think Mayor Dolan is next, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us into this conversation. One of the things I would bring up is a couple of the broadband points. I know one of the investments we've chosen to make with some of our money is in the actual cellular hotspots. They're a hot commodity at the libraries. They're being checked out because folks that can't afford even the $10 or $20 a month for internet access can afford to go to the library and get a free hotspot. And then they also check out Chromebooks and take those home so the kids can actually do their homework. It's really helping bridge the digital divide. And in talking about things that we would look back on in the future and go, wow, we really built a legacy of something that carries forward. If you haven't, Jerry, already engaged, Renee Willer is right here in our community. She's the CEO and president of Data Vision in the Woodburn area, and they run a very successful cooperative fiber to the door in the rural area that is, for lack of a better descriptive term, beating the pants off of the service and quality of Comcast at a fraction of the cost. So if we haven't reached out to Renee, I would definitely help bridge that gap if you want, because she lives right here in Cornelius. When I talked to her last, she'd be willing to give us some insight and recommendations on how we'd form a cooperative that could, because to actually have a cooperative that would carry on for a long time, this would be an independent business entity that would provide these services. And maybe there's some way we can help kickstart that. And that would be a legacy, right? That would be something that would come out of this that would carry on and on and on to provide this kind of bridging the digital divide of fiber right to a rural residence, a rural home, a rural farm, a business. So I think that's a real good opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. And that's a great idea. I know Renee from past relationships. So ask her to reach out and let's talk.
I'll do the intro email. I'll get you guys together.
Thanks.
And let's see, any other commissioner wanted to address that one? All right, hearing none. And I don't see anyone else in the queue, but I wonder if there's a thread there just in those last several back and forths. So I wonder about that question of what carries on, like the mayor just mentioned, and what is here and now. And I thought, Chair, you set that up well earlier when you spoke about the pressures on the county and the first wave, which was the CARES Act, and how we're moving into this place where maybe there's something more that can be invested. It's longer longer staying. I'm not sure how to describe that well, but I wonder if that's a thread that maybe you wanted to pick up on, Chair.
Well, I'd actually like to see what Representative Maxine Dexter and Representative Ron Noble might be wondering or interested about, because they hear about needs from businesses and residents in their district. Representative Dexter, a lot of her district is in the urban unincorporated area north of Highway 26, and Rep. Noble has a lot of rural land. So as we move forward as a county with our direct disbursement, unlike with what of the various cities of Washington County have received, what are some of the things on your mind that you wonder about at this local county level versus at your higher state level?
Great thought. Go ahead, Representative Dexter.
Thank you so much. And thank you. I just appreciate that you were so attuned to that, Chair. And it is indeed a challenge because I know the cities have put a lot of time and thoughtful investment with these dollars, and much of that won't reach the parts of my district that are unincorporated. The infrastructure investments, transportation, development of schools, there's a shortage of land that was allocated for school development, and certainly childcare, accessibility are all on the minds of my constituents. And, I think more than anything, the transportation corridor into Portland, because my district is bordering on Multnomah County, and many of them do go into the city of Portland to commute. And so the divestment or moving away from fossil fuels and trying to get to mass transit, I think raises a lot of concerns for people because they don't have easy access to the 26 corridor and whatnot. So those are things that I am grateful for you raising up, and certainly will continue to engage and work with you. And as we know, the redistricting has made House District 34 a separate district, and 33 will no longer incorporate the unincorporated Washington County. So I look forward to a representative who can really dig into this issue with Washington County. So thank you so much for your leadership on that.
Oh, go ahead, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Dexter, for sharing your thoughts tonight, but also in these many months of COVID in your service at the state level for Washington and Multnomah County residents and businesses. Really appreciate it.
It's been a privilege and also a challenge.
Rep Noble, is there anything you'd like to share with us tonight?
Oh, thank you, Chair. And my camera is off because broadband is non-existent where I live. And even though it is in the Yamhill County area, I know that in many parts of rural Washington County, that is an issue. And I appreciate all the work that the county's doing, and know that even counties south of Washington County are investing quite heavily in broadband. As we are in this pandemic, and much of ARPA and everything is related to pandemic, what I appreciate is more of an attitude of how are we going to adjust and move forward, as opposed to just waiting for it to end, because I think that would be the wrong track. So I appreciate Washington County's looking forward and looking for how we move forward from here. My colleague brought up transportation. That is still always has been and still continues to be on the radar. I think if anything, the pandemic has identified those areas that we knew were a problem. And now we see just how large of a problem it is. So between transportation, broadband, childcare was mentioned, and because of some of the isolation, child welfare, and some of the work of the Family Justice Center and some other things. So I don't have a whole lot more to comment on. I have to admit, I was out feeding the cows and listening to the presentation while it was going on. But I'm very encouraged by the direction Washington County is headed. So thank you.
Thank you. Chair, did I see that you wanted to maybe react to that one?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Rep Noble, for joining us tonight. And I'd just like to give a shout out to two of our city councilors from Forest Grove, Tim Rippey, as well as Christy Kutke, who I think there she is with her hand raised.
She's got her hand raised. So without objection, Councilor, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. And I think I had the pleasure of being in a presentation this morning with LOC from Ron Noble, which was really, really valuable. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to ramble for a second, but there's going to be a point in here. I want to first thank the commissioners for your focus on public health, which has come across very clear in the messaging and social media pieces, and I've really appreciated that. The second has been the ability for different ways of communicating with the commissioners themselves and their openness to that. Several town halls and including a night like this, which has been an opportunity for a newer counselor like me to grow my understanding. And I want to thank the staff for being very accommodating at sending links again, really being able to be people that I can connect with really any day, anytime. So thank you for that. And one of the work sessions that I was able to watch was the discussion that the commissioners had on the encampments plan and the update. And what I thought was the most valuable about that was a couple questions that Commissioner Rogers raised about the ARPA funding and what that means for cities in the future when that ARPA funding may no longer be there to support things like camp cleanup. And then the conversation that happened after that, in which then kind of rolled a little bit into the point of how SHS funding can be used, where that overlaps. And Commissioner Willie and Chair Harrington had some really good discussion there. That whole piece was really helpful for me as a counselor. And I wanted to just be a part of that conversation as it goes forward, because I think Commissioner Rogers, you raised some really good points about what cities can be thinking of in the future and where are we having those conversations now and how can we have those now? And then your second point you even raised tonight about how we can be a part of the process and be building together and aligning some of our policy strategies with what the county's doing. So I think I'm just wondering, as going forward, I'm sort of looking for a way we can continue to talk about a structure, and if there's different commissioners, how they are getting information to their councils and what's working and what's not, and what that could look like across the board, and then trying to meet the county halfway, right? Like we can't expect the county to be keeping us all informed about everything, but then where are the places that we can fit in and how should we be doing that? And I just was at the LOC Women's Caucus tonight, and there were women from all over the state in this caucus, many of them new counselors or mayors, really saying the same thing. They want to know how they can interface with other agencies, whether it's school boards or county commissions, what that looks like. And if you're newer, who is the person that's coaching you up on that? And so I'm happy to continue that strategy of inserting myself, but also want to welcome any, Commissioner Willie's been really good about now connecting me with staff and saying he's going to continue to share notes from things, and that's very helpful. So thank you for that. Mayor Truax's going to be laughing right now because that's way more than 2 minutes, but he's used to that at the council meeting. So thank you. I waited till the end, so I wasn't going to say anything unless there was time available.
You're very kind, and I didn't notice 2 minutes had gone by. So thank you. That was a lot to react to. Who from the board would like to provide some counter dialogue here, pick up the threads here that Councilor Kotke has brought to us? Go ahead, Commissioner Therese.
I'd like to jump in just quickly here. Just yesterday, the commission was out at Fern Hill looking at CWS investments and learning about things. And one of the issues that we talked about was what our communication looks like in relationship to our councils in the county, but also how do we bring in new counselors who may not understand some of the operations level of the county in relationship to unincorporated Washington County. And I think the point that was just brought forward emphasizes the need for those continued casual conversations, if you will, not necessarily, formal presentations, but almost a reception where we welcome newly elected people into Washington County as a whole and share our thoughts, share our approaches, share the the values that we all hold, so that there's a more open line of communication than we've had in the past. So I just bring that up as an opportunity to continue this type of conversation.
That's wonderful. Oh, and
Philip,
I see a hand raised.
if I could,
yes, please go ahead.
If I could jump in there, Pam, you brought up a great idea, or at least a thought. With we were out in Forest Grove with Clean Water Services, and their visionary investment that they're going to make in that community, and certainly the enhancement of services that they're going to provide. And it's going to be very important that we bring in the Forest Grove and the Cornelius city councils to let them know what that project looks like, and how we can enhance that with their participation. So, Councillor Kotke, that's primarily what I kind of committed to you, was that I would try and provide you with an update of information, and certainly not only you, but certainly the city councils of both of those communities. So it's a good start that we've got. So let's continue this, and certainly I'll be happy to provide you with an update of what Clean Water Services commitment is to your community. So looking forward to that. It's going to be very exciting.
Excellent.
Well, and I would just chime in. I have a monthly meeting with all 13 mayors of Washington County. They receive quite a bit of information from me in writing as well as verbally at those meetings, but also in between those meetings as well. And many of them share that information with their city councils. So I try to be mindful that as city councils, they all have a lot of work to do on their own. But we at Washington County are also going through a website redesign so that our information can be more easily accessible for everyone, including you. And we're really proud of our now utilizing the iAgenda tool so that it's much easier to find our meeting material as well as the video and audio streams that go along with that. So things are getting better. They have been getting better here at Washington County, and they will continue to get better. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of improvement underway, and it's interesting how much got expedited because of the pandemic. Look at us right now on a Zoom meeting. Can you imagine this in 2019?
Yeah.
This happening, but here we are. It's been really a catapult forward, and hopefully that's echoed with our city and legislative colleagues here.
Can I say one thing, Philip?
Yes, you can.
To the council, right? She's bringing up the communication piece, and that as long as I've been in government, which is a long time, that's always a piece that everybody talks about, and it is always improving. We're talking about that, but to me, the largest question, and I've told the other commissioners this in my mind, is who is Washington County, meaning county government, and where are we going, and what are we going to be? As I see us as we evolve, when I was mayor in Tualatin, it was a much smaller city than it is today. When I first got on the board of commission, we had about 270 some thousand people, or less than that, and now we're over 600. I mean, there's a lot of changes. And much as Multnomah County, I was born and raised in the Portland area, they evolved and started doing different things as well. And the future is going to be, what are cities going to do, and what is the county going to do? And I know the board is committed to taking a look at that unsexy thing called a strategic plan, but that guides us. They're going to be talking about what the future looks like. But let's pick on Forest Grove. What is Forest Grove going to look at like when it builds out? And what services are you going to provide as a full service city that maybe we don't need to supplement? What is the county going to do in terms of what it's going to be like tomorrow? Multnomah County evolved from a full service county when I was a kid to now they're principally health and human services, and they have the cities doing the other work. And so there's a big discussion on where we're going, and it's going to come up, and you might want to be a part of that because the old saying, if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter much how you maneuver in life. You're equally going to find some avenue that may not be the right avenue you want to go to. The county is going to have some interesting dialogues in the next year and a half. And I think the city should be a large part of that discussion because the future is going to be, we're shrinking in terms of it doesn't sound like it because we're growing, but we're shrinking in terms of unincorporated urban as the city continue to annex areas. It's going to be a different tomorrow potentially. So you're right to be involved, and I like it that you are. I think that's great, and I'm pleased that the chair and Commissioner Willie are communicating with you. I think that's good. It's a two-way street. Communicate with us.
Thank you. And I know Councilor Rippey has been waiting patiently as well. Why don't we turn our attention that way?
Well, thank you. I want to first of all thank the commissioners for having this kind of a webinar where we can have some dialogue with each other and that you can listen to the perspectives of a number of different people from across the county. I really appreciate it, and I applaud you for the effort to do so. But it's that very collaboration that I want to focus on, and that is, we're not in isolation of each other. We're not siloed. It's going to require an effort and collaboration, communication that includes not just the cities and the county, but other organizations as well. So let me give you an example: is the homelessness. There's no one silver bullet out there that's going to solve it. And so it requires county, it requires city, it requires nonprofits. And so I would just encourage you, as Commissioner Roy is saying, is that there needs to, up front at the beginning of the planning phase and the design phase of processes, that you include as many voices as you can possibly get into the process so that that we're as efficient and as effective as possible. And my concern from my perspective is the cross-jurisdictional issues that we face, which is, for example, the homelessness, public health, and other things. We're relying on each other to ensure that we serve our constituents, our residents, to the maximum possible. And so that involves that collaboration. So again, I appreciate the effort to be able to speak to you. I appreciate your effort to listen to our input. So thank you very much. On a Friday evening, I applaud all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a tribute to all of your devotion, it seems to me, to these important areas here for our community. It's been a long, almost 2 years. Any further reflections from our board about collaboration and the specific example of the response and efforts we focused on those experiencing homelessness? Not hearing any.
Well, Philip, that's a really deep, complex subject for a Friday night.
You have 10 minutes.
When we're supposed to be talking about ARPA funds. So let's just say that this is a continuing complex issue that we are trying to deal with, as well as the cities. And it's going to be a continuing issue. As Tim indicated, there's no silver bullet. And so we're all going to try and be as sensitive and dedicated to helping this situation as we possibly can. But other than that, Tim, if you want to extend this to a 7:30 to 9 o'clock conversation on a Friday night, that's about what it would take. And we're going to have to bring in a lot more experts than what are on this phone call right now. So, but let's continue to dialogue on this, because this is very important.
Absolutely not. I was only bringing up that subject as an example of collaboration, not for an issue to cover tonight. Not at all. Thank you.
Very good. Well, we are closing in on the end here, and you have stuck with it all the way through. What we would like to do, if we can maybe have the information slide back up, and I'm not seeing any more hands here, is to offer some final comments. I would like to offer that to the board, starting with our lowest number district number. I'll put it that way. I don't think Commissioner Fye is on with us right now, if I'm not mistaken. But someone correct me immediately if I'm skipping over her, because I'm not wanting to do that. So seeing that she's not here, Commissioner Therese, would you like to give some final thoughts here as we close out the evening, and we'll give the chair her traditional final word?
Thank you, Philip. I just want to extend my appreciation to all of you on this call. And, you know, our next interaction like this, I hope we have even more people. And I hope that we have, you know, more cities and more electeds represented. But having our state representatives here, having our city councilors, our mayors, that's really important. And we're not going to we don't accomplish much individually. We accomplish a lot together. And so I'm really pleased that you're all here. And we have managed to get through this whole discussion with the score of the Red Sox Astros game not changing. So for those of you that are interested, we're at the bottom of the 6th, and it's still Red Sox 0, Astros 1. When we're done, we can go root on your favorite team. So thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Therese. Commissioner Rogers.
I don't think I have a lot to add other than to hopefully, if we're going to have these kinds of discussions, they're not on a Friday night. I understand every council night is taken probably, but it might be a little better, and we might have more participation if it weren't this particular night. I'm looking at the list of folks, and I don't know if Jerry or I have the most cities in our area. My district, I have 80% of the population in cities, and I don't see any of those mayors or council members here tonight. So I'm hoping that date might change. And I like the dialogue. There was a lot of really thoughtful, good questions. What's important is not that we necessarily have the same perspective, but at least we're willing to talk about it. That we come to the table and we understand where we're all coming from and the challenges that we face. It's very difficult sometimes to get to the right decision, if there is one, but the right decision without incorporating viewpoints that sometimes are contrasting, and then having the information as to why they're contrasting and why we might have different thoughts on matters. And so the county doesn't have all the right answers. I can tell you there's a lot of smart folks out there. And I appreciate hearing from them and attempting to put together some kind of an analysis of the issues that we're currently facing and those that we're going to face. I would just simply end by saying that we're blessed with a lot of federal money. I don't think that's going to continue. It can't continue. I mean, we're just going to go broke if that's the case. So as we have more limited resources, how do we do our good work together? And how do we think of solutions that aren't just Band-Aids for a very short period of time? And let's think of things that are sustainable. And how do we together come up with sustainable sort of solutions? That's what's intriguing to me. And that's why I always like these discussions. So Thank you, Philip. That's my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, I think, Roy, just to continue that dialogue, the important thing about these kinds of meetings are that we get to hear from the cities. I have what I define it as 5.5 cities. I have about half of Hillsborough and then my other cities. But it's always educational to me to hear what their concerns are, what's going on in their cities, and the importance and what's the priorities. And so I think these kinds of Zoom meetings give that opportunity. And I would agree, we need to have them on another time that's not a Friday night. And so we can invite more cities and certainly more city councilors and mayors to join us, because we need to hear that as a county. So anyway, that's my thoughts. So I'll turn it over to the chair.
I'd like to start with thanking each of you for your community service. I really do appreciate all the time and energy that you put into it. I want to thank Dorian for finding our first available opportunity and trying something new, as we've been doing a lot of experimentation here in 2021. So thank you, Dorian. You always put together fabulous material. And lastly, thank you everyone for attending. And that includes our great Washington County staff. Stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend. Be sure to get a flu shot. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair. And we've left the slide up here for where we're putting information on our American Rescue Plan so that you can go there anytime, and we'll keep it informed and keep our social media feeds going as well. It is late. It's nearly 7:30 on a Friday. If any of our board wants to hang on and join a very quick staff debrief, you are welcome to. If you would rather just carry on and begin your weekend, you are welcome to. In any event, we are so appreciative of everybody tonight. Thank you, one and all. And with that, good night.